Good evening. I'd like to call the village board meeting for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, April 16th, 2019 to order with roll call, please.
McAlpin?
Here.
Betts?
Here.
Weinhammer? Here. Kostler?
Here.
Kraus?
Here.
Cavelli? Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now move to the open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I have two people that have signed in. Barbara, you're up.
If I'd have known there'd be this many people here, I might not have signed my name. But I've got this article from the paper. This is about the Kraus Senior Center. I'm so worried about it. I hope it is there forever. From 1888 it was built, and it served us in every way you can imagine. And this is what it said at the last paragraph. Oh, I should have my glasses. Anyway, this new thing that's built across from the post office, it says something here. Can you read this to me, this last thing about the room there? Can you read it?
Sure. Does the approved plan for the community meeting space of up to 1,800 square feet that the developer added at the request of the village for the village and Cary Park District senior activities?
Yeah, see the Cary Park District and that new building. What's going on?
That's just an additional space for seniors to gather. It's for their use, it's for the township's use, it's for the park district's use. We negotiated that when we approved that development to give the seniors another place to go. It is in no way, shape, or form replacing the Kraus Senior Center.
Okay.
It's like an auxiliary. It will give you another place to go. They'll have cards or games or meetings or whatever. They could do whatever they like to do there. It is not meant to replace the Kraus Senior Center.
Because the people that live there, if they want to use that room, they get the chance, they get
Correct.
first chance to use it.
Right, they will be able to use it too. It's like a community
And why
room.
can't we just keep doing it like at the community center? Whenever there's too many people for the,
Well, I think that
crowds.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think what we're trying to do is give our senior population options. We have a growing senior population in the Village of Cary. So we're looking at things to give our seniors other places to go, to congregate, because we've been told at times that the senior center is crowded, and giving people opportunities to go somewhere else to do things. It's like I've said,
I've got a
Barbara.
list here, I'm sure nobody, about all the things that senior center did for us since 1888, all the different, a list of everything that it did to serve us. And I got a list of all the people who donated their time and money and effort and things whenever it was going to be demolished.
Well, it's not
The
going to.
word demolished is in here from before.
I think it
Before Beth
was.
Ebert hopped on the bandwagon
No.
and got people.
Well, that might have been many years ago, Barbara.
was.
But we haven't talked about that. I've been mayor for 6 years.
Yeah.
We've never talked about demolishing the Kraus
No,
Senior
but
Center.
back then they did, but then she got on the ball and got everybody to help. Now it needs work done again. So what can we do about it?
Well, that's a conversation that we can have if you want to look at some of the different things that we do. We do have some capital improvements that need to be done there. We're working on funding those type of improvements to continue to make it a safe place for people to use.
Right.
But we have no intentions, as people sitting on this board, we have no intentions of demolishing that building.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Barbara.
I hate to be a pest. I talked about this before, but I'm worried about it. I don't want anything to happen to it
Well,
because it's.
continue to stay engaged like you are. Let us know
And
how.
I've got pictures of when it was plaqued.
Okay.
It was plaqued and put into the Historical Society.
Okay.
And I thought when that was done, I thought then it's good forever.
Okay, thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, sir.
Barbara McCoy, did I get that correct?
I thought you just wanted everyone to sign in.
Well, come on.
I don't know.
I wish. So you have nothing to say? Okay, all right. we'll let you slide on that. But come back at another time and see, it's very easy to talk. We let everybody have a conversation with us, okay? Thank you. Anybody else here want to talk about anything with the village board? Any comments? Anybody else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close open forum at 6:06. I have one thing on my report today. We have a proclamation for Earth Day, whereas the global community now faces extraordinary challenges such as environmental degradation, climate change, food and water shortages, and global health issues, and whereas all people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have the moral right to a healthy, sustainable environment, and whereas a sustainable environment can be achieved on the individual level through educational efforts, public policy, and consumer activism campaigns. Now, therefore, I, Mark Koenig, Mayor of the Village of Cary, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2019 as Earth Day in the Village of Cary to support environmental initiatives in the Village of Cary and to encourage others to undertake similar actions. Dated the 16th day of April 2019. Trustee reports is next. I've not been made aware of any, so we'll go ahead and move right to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items number 1 through 12 is shown on the village's website and is displayed on the video monitor during the village board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Betts?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Hostler?
Yes.
Weinhammer?
Yes.
Thank you. Before we get to the next item, the village was presented with a letter yesterday from the petitioner that pertains to the next item on the agenda, where the applicant is requesting their petition to be sent back to the ZPA. I will entertain a motion to send the subject request back to the ZPA.
Mayor, can we note one other, I didn't realize we'd received this letter as well. Can we note that this was received by the
Sure.
board?
I was going to do that during the motion.
Okay.
Okay. Do I have a motion to send this back to the ZPA? The motion fails. We will move forward with the item at hand. I will entertain a motion to approve an ordinance granting a map amendment and conditional use for a car wash facility at 45 Northwest Highway.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Before Brian gets going, I want to put into the record that we received a letter in opposition for this petition from Jennifer Myers at 158 Mary Lane, Cary, Illinois. This letter will therefore be submitted into the record for this, her objection.
I believe the letter was provided to all the board members via email today. If you didn't get a chance to check your email, it's obviously before you now.
Thank you. Brian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. The request before you this evening is case 18, ZPA 1101. It's for proposed car wash facility at 45 Northwest Highway. The approvals that are being sought this evening are a map amendment to rezone the subject parcel from B3 to the B2 district, and then also upon the rezoning, conditional use for a car wash facility. A little bit of history regarding the site. Previously, the site was developed with various commercial uses. The slide, or the image on the upper right-hand slide, shows kind of development back in the property back in 2005. But in 1997, the property was a mixture of different zoning classifications, including the B2 district, which included properties that fronted along Route 14. The former bank and a flower shop were located there. There were some manufacturing zone properties in the rear of the site that fronted off Main Street. And then in 1997, the last time the village did a comprehensive update to our zoning regulations, part of that was a rezoning of the property to the entire area to the B3 district. In 2008, a subdivision was proposed that re-subdivided that area. The Miller's Hill subdivision comprised a complete redevelopment of the area, included the construction of the existing CVS building, and then the creation of the 3 lots which comprise the current petition. Currently, the petitioner is seeking to develop a car wash on the property, which is outlined in the red. It's the vacant half of the property to the east, and it would complete the entire Miller's Hill subdivision as originally divided. Again, the proposal is to develop approximately 5,000 square foot building. Access for vehicles would be limited to the private drive, which would be between the site and the CVS property, which exists today. There would be queuing for over 30 vehicles on the property, so that any peak demand time periods would be adequately served on the site and would not overflow onto that private driveway. Landscape screening and berming would be provided around the property, and specifically at the north end of the site, to screen the drive-through lane or entrance to the car wash facility from adjacent residential that is across Main Street in that location. Also, there's a grade difference between Main Street and the property, so the site sits a little bit lower, so any headlights that would be for vehicles traveling northbound would be lower than the street as well. As proposed, hours of operation would be Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then also on Sunday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This slide here gives a little more information as far as the landscape plan that was proposed based off the original hearing back in December. It also compares the two zoning districts, the B3 to the B2. Both are very similar as far as setbacks that are required, and then as far as lot coverage and other aspects that are permitted. Both B2 and B3 district have very similar uses that are permitted within them. The car wash is one specifically that is not listed within the B3 district, but it is permitted within the B2 district. But both districts otherwise have very similar uses from a retail office perspective are allowed within them. The petitioner provided a noise study, which was performed at the request of staff as part of their petition. It was provided for a similar facility that was located in another municipality, but it measured what the noise levels would be from the entrance to the car wash facility to adjacent residential. As you can see on this slide, from the southernmost point of the blue line in this image, would be about 350 feet from the nearest residential property line. Decibel levels at that point would be between 11 and 18 decibels, so a very finite level from a noise perspective as far as the entrance to the drive-through. On the opposite side of the building would be the exit closest to Route 14, which would be where larger noise impact would be, but those properties are even further from adjacent residential located further to the west. This slide shows the proposed building elevations. There's a brick structure with stone accent materials, glass, as well, and two tower features that would be in both the north and south elevations. This particular project went to the zoning board for 2 public hearings. It was first reviewed by the ZPA back in December for the original request. During that time period, there were some concerns that were brought up by the public from a overflow or a stormwater retention standpoint and potential impacts on adjacent properties. Since that time period, the petitioner revised their plans and went back before the ZPA in February with some revisions that they tried to address those concerns. The slide or the image on the left of the slide shows the original plan, which had 2 curb cuts to that shared access drive. In the image on the right, they removed one of those access points as they regraded the property so that if there were a large storm event, retaining walls are provided along the east property line that would direct any stormwater away from that property line and towards the Route 14 area should the containment area on the property not adequately contain that storm event, so that it would overflow onto Route 14 and away from adjacent property. This slide again shows both the proposed preliminary grading plan, utility plan, which were developed since the first public hearing. Again, shows the grading that's proposed on the site with the overland flow route in this location along Route 14, so that if this area where any surface or subsurface retainage of stormwater would occur if it were to get to a point that would exceed that 100-year flood or storm capacity would overflow under Route 14. Other improvements to the site would include the relocation of existing utilities around the property to the location of the proposed building. There are existing utilities that go through the middle of the site that would have to be relocated around the proposed building so that the lift station force main would be rerouted as part of this work. This is another slide that was provided by the petitioner during the public hearing in February. It shows the location of the property. You can get the mouse here in the center of the plan. This shows during a 100-year storm event the contributory area that was analyzed to determine if the entire area that's kind of a lighter shade to the north that goes up to about James Way area in the north end, kind of down the ComEd power lines. If a storm, if that entire area drained to the site, it's designed to accommodate a 100-year storm for that contributory area. Most of the stormwater in that area actually goes to other locations, including Veterans Park, and then also a detention basin along Decker. But from a design perspective to accommodate the worst case scenario, the engineer looked at if all that area went through the site to accommodate the stormwater detention on the property would be designed to accommodate that type of flow route. Additionally, the petitioner provided some material data sheets regarding the products that would be utilized on the property. Specifically, they are proposing more green type products that would be more biodegradable. And also the petitioner can provide additional information as far as the operation. With most car washes, the amount of water that they utilize, they usually recycle the water for their facilities. In this case, due to the low amount of water that would be utilized for washing purposes, they were not planning to recycle the operation here. Most of the products that they have would be biodegradable, self-cleaning from that perspective, and that would not require large amounts of water to wash the vehicles in this location. As with any petition that's reviewed by the village, zoning board and also the village board, there are certain standards that are established within the village's regulations that are reviewed to determine if a request is justified. Specifically for map amendment standards, these are listed within our code. Specifically, the amendment is not detrimental to the order of development of the village, and not detrimental to or endanger the public health, promotes public interest, not solely the interest of the applicant, they're consistent with existing uses of property within the general area of the property in question, generally not suitable, property is generally not suitable for uses permitted under the existing zoning classification, and the trend of development in the area since original zoning of the affected property was established supports the request. In addition, that it's consistent with the harmony and objectives of the comprehensive plan. For the conditional use, which would be specifically the car wash request, again, there are standards related to the approval of conditional use. Again, the use would not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, and general welfare. Use would not substantially diminish or impair values of property within the immediate vicinity of the site, not impede normal orderly development of surrounding property, and also consistent with the directives and policies of the future land use plan of the village. As mentioned in the staff report, this proposal was reviewed at 2 public hearings before the ZPA. At the meeting in February, it was reviewed and received a recommendation or a vote of 3-2 in support of the requests at the ZPA with 2 members absent. However, per our village code, it requires at least 4 votes for a positive recommendation. So with the receival of only 3 votes of an affirmation, the effect is actually a recommendation of denial for this board. The result then requires at this level a 2-3 vote of the trustees in order to approve the request. Based on the information provided in the case number 18, ZPA 1101, should the village board determine that the request does comply with the map amendment and conditional use standards, they should approve this evening the 2 following motions. First is the approval of a map amendment to rezone the subject property from B3 Fringe Business District to the B2 Shopping Center Business District. And secondly, approval of conditional use for a car wash facility subject to the conditions that are listed in the staff report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the history of the case and the petition this evening. The petitioner is also here and may have some additional information they want to provide for the board's review as well.
Does anybody have any questions immediately for Brian? We can go ahead and call the petitioner up if you'd like to make some comments, please.
Good evening to everyone here. My name is Alan Jacob, that's spelled J-A-C-O-B. I am the attorney for the petitioner, Mr. DePore, in this map amendment and special use application. What I'd like to add to what Brian said is that we initially met with village officials on October 25th, 2018, went over the process, the application process, the legal notices, all the required plans that would be reviewed by the Board of Zoning Appeals and ultimately the trustees here today. After that, we submitted the application and set the first hearing for December 13, 2018. At that first hearing before the Board of Zoning Appeals, there were some concerns raised by adjacent property owners regarding contamination, regarding containment, and things of that. So the Board of Appeals gave us the option of whether continuing the matter to cooperate with the adjacent property owner or to take a vote. And after speaking to the petitioner and coordinating with each other, we decided that we would cooperate with the adjacent property owner, continue the matter instead of sending it to the trustee for vote or sending it to the Board of Appeal for vote, to see if we can work out an arrangement or agreement and to address any of their concerns, because we understand that they have a business there. It's been there for 80 years, and we want to be cordial neighbors with each other. So subsequent to that December 13th meeting, our team, not I, but our team went to the trout farm on December 21st, 2018, and we walked the property. We were shown the operation. We cooperated with them. We even decided to, the petitioner decided on his own accord to switch the chemicals used, which are biodegradable, to chemicals that are actually marine friendly, because we understand that he has fish on that farm, they're trout, and it's his primary source of business. But while walking that property, we did notice on that property there a storage facility that contained grease, stored gasoline, oil, excavators, tools, engine parts, tractors, and what looked like a mechanical shop. So any concerns raised by the representatives from there on the December 13th meeting, based on what's stored there, if there was a flood or if there was some kind of catastrophe or natural disaster, all of those things would have washed onto that farm and caused havoc to that business. What we've proposed here is, in addition to switching out the chemicals to be aquamarine, we've also agreed to put up a wall, a barrier, so that nothing escapes that property, no contaminants or what have you that would come off the vehicles that may penetrate that farm. I also want to mention one of the reasons that we asked for this to be sent back to the Board of Appeals is because we discovered that this property used to be a gas station, and the gas station actually had a leak. It had a contamination problem, and the EPA had to come in and clean it up. None of that was mentioned during the December 13th, 2018 meeting. No damage was caused to the trout farm across the street. And in fact, a gas station operation would be more detrimental to that adjacent neighbor than a car wash, because at a gas station, you'll have gas leaking when people put the pumps down or into the car, debris, oil leaking from cars, which happens all the time, transmission oil leaking from the cars, windshield washer fluid being spilled, differential oil leaking from cars, and then when the rain comes down, all that stuff is washed away with no barrier there. I provide this information before you today because we believe that a car wash facility would not be detrimental to the adjacent property owner. we believe that we've taken extra steps to not only comply with the zoning board and the zoning rules, but also to accommodate the adjacent property owner. We don't believe that this is a detriment to his business. We think that it would be great facility to bring to the town of Cary and to the residents that live here. The design itself makes it look like a bank, not a car wash, so it would be aesthetically pleasing to the eye as people traverse Northwest Highway. And we'd be willing to provide any other information that the trustees here or the mayor requires, if it's required, to be continued, to be provided for, including the proof that this used to be contaminated based on it being a gas station. Based on that, I have nothing else to offer. I don't know if anybody else, if the petitioner wants to talk. You want to say something?
Nick Spallone, Car Wash Pro Designers. I just wanted to mention that I was one of the four that were present, or three that were present? Four? Three? Three that were present at the trout farm. We visited with the Millers. We were in their home. We walked the entire site, which, by the way, is beautiful. We completely understand their concern. We completely understand why they're opposed to this. And that's why we took extra measures to ensure that there absolutely would not be an issue. We did call Brian and a lot of people at the city in regards to the gas spill and the cleanup. Couldn't track down any reports of any fish that were harmed in the spill, any fish that had died as a result of the leak. Our facility is designed to take the spillage and put it through a sanitary system, not expose it to storm. So we take a lot of the material that we have in site, we put it through a filtration system, what we call a triple basin. We drive it through that, and then it gets exposed to the sanitary city sewer system. So we've taken extra, I mean, this is 10 times more than we would have done. Now, even the product that we're pitching is one that will cost our client 4 times more than what he would have, that any of our other clients are paying. And he's willing to do that. And we're willing to take measures. And we went there, we went and continued this to do whatever we could to make sure that we addressed each and every issue that the Millers had and concerns, and then redesigned the layout in order to accommodate what could be a Noah's Ark scenario. And we went past flooding measures that our civil engineer couldn't even find data anymore. I mean, it would be literally the boat with 2 animals scenario. So we really went above and beyond. We wouldn't want to be in a place where we built the site. Keep in mind, if we built this site and something had happened to that farm as a result, knowing how many people know the Millers and have their kids and their fathers and their grandfathers present, and we had harmed that farm, we know that would kill us. So there would be 2 deaths. There would be the death of the fish on that farm, and there would be the death of our business. So we wouldn't even make the attempt if we thought that there was even a remote chance that anything could harm that facility. That's what I wanted to add. But we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions for the petitioners?
I do. Have you looked at any other locations?
We have. So that we've been presented with across the street, and access is an issue. So if it's not fluid, our business can hurt. We're not a full service wash, we're an express. So in a full service situation, you got people that take 30 minutes to 45 minutes out of their day. They'll sit in the lobby, they'll wait, they'll do their card, and it doesn't matter about the access. This is all about in and out quick. So, under 3 minutes. When you have the developer on the property across the street mentioned some proposed access issues, we knew that it wouldn't be fluid enough for us. Yes, it would be a cheaper development for the client because the client wouldn't have to build 12-foot walls all the way around his property because the land is flat. We wouldn't have to do underground detention because we have the space to do above ground. So there were so many positives. It's the access that was the issue.
I actually think the access is better with 2 roads right there as well. the Jandis cutoff, you're talking about right there, correct?
Right.
The Jandis cutoff on 14.
Yes.
So they could come in and exit either way.
So we wouldn't be corner, we would be behind or next to the proposed gas station. So you'd have to go at the Miller light, hang a left, go past the gas station, there'd be private access, you'd hang a left. It would be common access for whatever development is beyond that. And then you'd pull into our property and you'd have to do that same way out.
Yeah. I don't know. Personally, for me, I just think that if you're getting gas and doing the car wash in the same spot, it's just easier. That was my only question.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Well, first of all, I love your product. I mean, your car wash is phenomenal. I love the look of it. I love the idea of it. I love the concept of it. I struggle with, again, I appreciate that you're saying that they're going to use marine products. It's 4 times as much. How do we have a guarantee that they're going to continue to do that? And I'm just talking as a business person. What's the guarantee that they're not going to 2 months down the line say, let's start buying this product we'll go back to biodegradable instead of marine safe? I mean, that's a concern.
We would have no problem with a condition
Okay.
entered.
That's one of my concerns. One of my other concerns is, and I know that this is a phrase that people like to use, but it's the highest and best use of a property. And I look at that parcel of property, and I would agree with Jennifer that I say if I'm going to a gas station, that's where I'm going to get a car wash. I'm not going to go one side car wash and one side a gas station. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm trying to look at a big picture here, at a long-term picture. And my concern is that that's not going to be the most advantageous spot for it. I view that property as being more readily developed in a way that, whether it be a restaurant, whether it be something different that could complement the trout farm, whereas I'm not seeing that your property is that your proposed development is going to do that. So I have a couple of different layers of concerns. I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate, I see all of the work that you've done, and I would love for your car wash to be part of our community, just because of, you guys really look like you're a class operation. But we've heard some things from letters coming in, and I don't know that say that some of the studies are from 5 years and they're 5 years old, and is that still, is that 100% accurate, or is it not? Those are some of the things that I'm still struggling with. I don't know if anyone else on the board is struggling with some of those things, but those are things that I struggle with.
Well, I'd like to mention also that site is currently zoned to allow a wash, and it wouldn't have to come in front of the committee. I mean, for a gas station.
Gas station.
So, I mean,
I know.
somebody can come right in and throw a gas station in there. We wouldn't even be in this scenario right now. They go right for permit. So that's if we're talking about that best use,
Yeah.
Would you prefer to have a gas station? And again, I understand from the city level, yes, because the tax dollars are there, and we appreciate that. And but if the biggest concern, which in my opinion, the largest concern here, is the safety of the trout
Correct.
farm. Okay. The city, we've exceeded their expectations. Brian put some standards, and we exceeded every single one of the standards that they wanted. Our biggest concern was the trout farm. So if the trustees, the mayor, and everybody that's part of this scenario is concerned about the safety of the fish, just know that if a gas station goes there, there's no choice. It's part of it can happen.
I do understand that. And I do think that the number one concern is we've got an ecosystem, basically their own little ecosystem down there with spring-fed water, and nobody wants to have anything that could potentially hamper that for
Right.
many reasons, from a
Right.
business standpoint, but plus from the standpoint if you've got your own self-sustaining ecosystem down there.
Right.
So that is the number one concern.
And we address that. And we would have zero issue with the condition from the city stating that there will be regular visits, they can be anonymous visits, that the products that we provide, the board saying the chemicals that we'll be using, if they are not the chemicals that are on site, that there's a fine of some sort. And the client has discussed this, and he's okay with that.
Okay.
Trustee Krause, any comments? Trustee Betts, any comments? Trustee Castler. Trustee Cavalli?
No, I mean, I'd just like to hear from the Miller family, their thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'd like to hear, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Before you, this gentleman, did you want to come up and address the board? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Neb Dupour. I'm the proposed owner for this business, and I just wanted to cite my observations throughout this whole process. We came here initially, as my attorney had mentioned, and met with the village building committee, Brian Simmons, and we did all our due diligence. We also took into consideration the concerns that were here, which is why I'm going to reiterate, we postponed to a second hearing. You know, had we not been concerned about these issues, we would not have met. What was disappointing to me, quite frankly, was this process and how it's been unfolding. That time between the first hearing and the second hearing was used by our potential neighbor to disinform or misinform a lot of the community about, you know, our being upfront with them and our being providing MSDS sheets that were AQUA friendly. He had mentioned at the second committee meeting that we did not provide information, we weren't forthcoming, we didn't meet. We spent 2.5 hours at that property. That's the thing that was disappointing to me as a potential business owner in this community. Because we had mentioned also to the committee earlier that we know the fact that this is zoned for a business that would not have to go through the process that I am going through, which is much more of a risk to the fish farm than our business. So that's disappointing to me. That's not even being considered based on the comments by Ms. McAlpine, and I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the last name, because not only did you not consider that fact, but the fact that there was a previous gas station there with a leak that the EPA had to address, and no concerns were brought up by the Millers, having a business there for 80 years plus.
I can understand your concerns with that process.
So then it doesn't make sense to me that common sense is not dictating here in making this decision, because all we're hearing is risk, 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 and we're doing everything we can to address this risk at a tremendous amount of time on my part and cost. Each of these individuals here have been here 3 times now at a high personal cost to me to try to accommodate a potential neighbor who is not taking common sense into consideration at this point in time, I feel, based on the comments that I'm hearing coming forth. So I take this opportunity to, I guess, vent my thoughts or share my thoughts at risk of perhaps getting a negative vote for this, but I still think that it's necessary to point out. And I also would hope that you can consider the efforts that we've made in redeveloping site plans, redirecting the water, taking into consideration 500-year floods, you name it. These are self-contained chemicals that are aqua-friendly. If a flood were to occur, they would float in the water. They wouldn't go anywhere. I'd be more concerned about Mr. Miller's own property, which is much closer in proximity to those lakes that have heavy-duty equipment. As we say, he does his repairs there. He has a lot of construction equipment there that would pose a greater risk than what we're proposing. So again, I just ask that you take common sense facts here into your consideration, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Miller, did you care to address the board?
I'm just going to talk about the trout farm. I'll let him handle everything else. Christina Anderson, 65, do I need to do this?
Sure.
Oh, 65 Highway 14 in Cary. I have been running the trout farm for 4 years now. It's been in my family over 82. Are you seeing? You okay? Okay. As long-standing business owners in Cary, you all are familiar with our business. People come from all around to fish and eventually consume what they catch. These fish are slated for human consumption. If there is any runoff, and I understand that there has been precautions taken, but if there is any runoff from the car wash, either due to neglect or stormwater, it would contaminate our lakes. The petitioners did supply, what you guys did, receive the Green Earth Technology forms, and on all of these forms, I don't know if you guys noticed, at the bottom of each one, there's this little disclaimer, and it just says that considered to be dependable, and this information is considered to be dependable and is accurate to the best of Green Earth Technology's knowledge. However, Green Earth Technology makes no warranty whatsoever. It assumes no responsibility for injury to recipient or to third persons for any damage to any property, and recipients assume all such risks. And that's so. The petitioner keeps saying that the chemicals are safe. The safety data sheets that everybody was provided were also, they're 5 to 8 years old, but they also do kind of take away that risk. So I just don't know where that guarantee is. I don't know who's guaranteeing that we're gonna be okay. The manufacturer doesn't guarantee it. And if these spill into our lake, who is on the hook for the cost of loss and stage 3 cleanups, which is a substantial amount of money? We cannot get behind this business model that presents this much risk to our delicate environment. If another car wash is something that we feel, or you guys as a board feel this town needs, there are multiple other sites this business could go on that would put a business that wouldn't put a business that has been in this town for over 80 years at risk. I also, I made copies, I don't know if you guys need them, for the comprehensive plan. It has a little spot on us, if you wanna, and I have some for you guys too.
Thank you.
Lake Julian Trout Farm is one of the most recognizable businesses in Cary and attracts visitors from throughout the region. The village should ensure that development on US 14 frontage fits the future land use and designs character of the corridor, keeping in mind the outdoor recreation and natural areas that appeal of Lake Julian. I ask that you please support our local business and vote no. Thank you guys for your time.
David Miller, 65 Highway 14, Cary. One thing, another concern I have is there have been no noise studies for the south side of the property where we have fishermen that be literally 40 feet away from where this car wash is going to go. And they have the same hours we have. We have people trying to be a tranquil place for fishing with a car wash being right up the same hours we have people fishing. The heavy equipment they're talking about, that's such a hazard that could be to it, is 1,000 feet away at a whole different elevation than what the trout pond is. So there's absolutely no way that could contaminate or ever affect the trout pond. So, and the Clark station that they said they had a spill, I've never been aware of a spill at the Clark station. The Clark station also was 2,000 feet away from where the spring is that they proposed to put their building 40 feet away from. So there's a big discrepancy on the Clark station's issues, and it wasn't on the same property. It was all the way at the corner of East Main Street and Route 14. So it was all the way where the CVS is, beyond that over there. So it had no real direct impact of flowing onto our property. There's 3 buildings between where the Clark station was and Lake Julian is. And they were good. We've always had good rapport with the gas station, and there was always steps taken to make sure they had testing, everything else all done to it. And I'm not aware of any spill they were having at Clark station. Any questions?
Does anyone have any information on that?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
I just want to make a couple of points after hearing these individuals speak. First of all, we have a box here, a box full of evidence to prove that there was actual leak and contamination cleanup done at this gas station, and we'd be more than willing to make copies and provide them to this board. one thing I mentioned, I know there's been a lot of talk about selection of another lot and find another place to go and carry or whatever the recommendations have been, but I just want to point out, and maybe I'm mistaken, but according to the conditional use standards, the map amendment standards and zoning standards, best use or highest use isn't the standard that must be met. The risk really belongs to the petitioner. He's hired people to help him during this process. He's hired a car wash consulting group called Car Wash Pro Designers, who actually do comprehensive studies to select the right lot for the most profit, for the most activity. And this lot was selected, not the one behind it, not the one next to it, and that's why that lot was selected. The noise study that Mr. Miller mentioned, I don't know if one was done to the south, but if it wasn't, we can provide that. And based upon all the other projects we've done, we've never exceeded a village standard for noise. And then finally, the runoff issue that Christina brought up, Anderson. If there's a gas station there, a runoff would cause much more catastrophes to the trout farm than a car wash that uses marine-friendly chemicals. Based upon the evidence provided and all the testimony that you've heard, we would ask that you vote a yes to the map amendment and the conditional special use. Is there anything else you guys wanted to add? Okay, thank you.
Is there any other comments from the village board?
Is there information about that conversation? I'm just curious about that.
I've not been, when was it? Just give us a ballpark when that was.
According to the site investigation report, the site investigation was done in October 2011. So the study was done in 2011. So I don't know how long the leak was. We could go through that. I can provide that to you, but there was a study done and there was a leak. And a cleanup. It's no longer contaminated.
I have no right where it was. I've been here for 27 years. Is there any other comments or questions for the petitioner or the Miller family?
The only other question I have is, you mentioned that this was the one site selected for profitability. Was there a secondary or third site that was also identified that maybe wasn't as profitable?
Yes, it's in Algonquin.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Roll call, please.
Cavelli,
No.
Kostler,
No.
Betts,
No.
McAlpine,
No.
Weinhammer,
No.
Kraus,
No. The motion fails.
Right, so the next action by the board then would be the ultimate action that you're going to take with the findings that the board does propose to make here. So essentially, in voting the way you have on the petition, you've determined that the petitioner has not met the petitioner's burden to satisfy the standards in the ordinance for the map amendment and/or the conditional use at this point. So the appropriate action would be to authorize a draft ordinance to be brought back to the board at the next meeting with appropriate findings denying or proposing to deny this request for a map amendment and the conditional use. The board is required to make findings when it makes a zoning decision like this. So at this point, you're rejecting the findings which would support a grant of the map amendment and support a grant of the conditional use, and electing, I presume, to consider findings that would support denial.
Okay.
So a motion to authorize the preparation of a draft ordinance to that effect would be in order.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to,
What Scott said?
what Scott said, yeah. No, an ordinance to validate the findings of this board. Is that good enough?
Can I suggest the
Yes.
language of the motion? Yeah, a motion to authorize preparation of a draft ordinance to be brought back to the board at its next meeting to support the denial of this zoning request for a map amendment and for a conditional use.
So moved.
Hey, Scott, just a question. This wasn't on the agenda. Is that okay with OMA, what we're doing?
What wasn't on the agenda?
This motion?
Oh, to authorize preparation? Yes, it's okay. This is not a final action. It's authorizing the document to be brought back for action before the board.
Roll call, please.
Is
Oh,
is there a motion in a second?
So let me just understand what we're talking about here.
Sure.
So from my understanding, you're going to bring a draft ordinance back to change the ordinance of what can go here? Or
All right, so what you have before you, what you have in the packet, is essentially an ordinance, if it was the board's decision, to grant the request, the petitioner's request, the applicant's request for a map amendment, which would then change the zoning to allow this use, and for that conditional use that would be needed. The board has determined that the petitioner has not met the burden to justify the map amendment or the conditional use. So this ordinance is not being adopted. The ordinance you have in your packet is not being adopted by that board. So the board now needs to take an action and make findings on this petition. The findings that you're proposing to make at this point are that the petitioner has not satisfied their burden, so we would prepare a draft ordinance that sets forth some of the discussion that took place tonight, some of the discussion that's taken place by the public before today and today, as the board's proposed findings for you to consider for adoption of an ordinance at your next meeting denying this request.
Okay, I understand. Thanks.
Okay.
May I ask one question? If the board is unable to draft findings that are suitable to overcome or prove that the petitioner didn't meet its burden, meaning if there are no findings to support the vote, what would happen at that point? Would it be re-voted on?
They would then, sure, then they would elect the next course of action, whether or not they want to reconsider a grant, whether they want to consider new conditions.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, but we wouldn't be required to take any action if that was to occur, right?
Right.
No new
So-
application.
So the burden is on you, the applicant petitioner, to demonstrate that you've satisfied all the standards.
Right.
So the board is not in a position to have to prove that you haven't met your burden. They can conclude you have not met your burden as to some or all of the standards.
Okay.
And those would be the findings.
Okay.
Could be the findings.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a first and a second.
Yeah, we still need a motion in a second.
I did, Ellen and
Jeff
Jeff.
seconded.
Courtney, roll call, please.
Costler,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Betts,
Yes.
Weinhammer,
Yes.
Cavelli.
Yes.
Thank you. As a matter of housekeeping, the consideration for approval of the ordinance accepting a warranty deed for the transfer of property from Lafarge Aggregates Meyer Material to Village of Cary has been continued to May 7th, 2019. There's no information to report at this time. Moving to Administrator's Report. Jacob, anything?
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. Chief Finland?
Just that April is Distracted Driver Awareness Month, and we'll be engaging in a campaign on the last week of April in conjunction with all other agencies through the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police to focus on that particular driving violation to improve safety for the motoring public.
Thank you, Chief. Director Morimoto?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick updates for the public and for the village board. April 23rd, so next Tuesday from 5 to 8 p.m. here at Village Hall is our open house meeting for engineering and construction. So we're here to give the public an opportunity to get a preview and some details on the different projects coming up this season, as well as some studies in particular with our Village Hall police station. So we invite the public and their families as well. We'll have some Earth Day related exhibits. We will have a raffle for a free rain barrel. We'll have tours of the police station and a couple of vehicles and demonstrations of equipment, little touch a truck and police squad demos. So invite your friends and family, and we hope to see you then.
Aaron, how many of those rain barrels do we have left?
Oh, I don't know the exact number in stock, but there's a good handful. But if we get low, we have the opportunity to relook at our stock. You said there's about 4 currently in the building.
Is that too many? 4.
So apparently they've been popular items.
Yeah, I see him around town. Director Simmons?
Just two additional updates to provide this evening. First, just for the board's awareness and also for the public, we are having a visioning workshop related to the Route 31 corridor study with the study that's being performed with CMAP and also the Village of Algonquin for the Route 31 corridor. The next phase is to host a visiting workshop, which will be held on May 15th from 6:30 until 8 p.m. That'll be in the St. John's Lutheran Church in downtown Algonquin. But it'll invite the public out to participate in that project and provide some feedback regarding the 31 corridor, including the Meyer parcels in both villages and also potential commercial lots that are along that roadway. Additionally, just for the board's information and also for the public, last week the zoning board held a public hearing to review the Unified Development Ordinance. It was a second hearing that reviewed the proposed changes to our development regulations. During that evening, the zoning board recommended approval of recommended changes with a couple of slight modifications to the text. That would be then scheduled for village board review. Currently, we're looking at May 21st for that to come before the board for review. But for the public that attended that meeting and also for the board's knowledge, we'll be bringing that forward next month.
Thank you. Any future agenda items and discussion by village board? Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We're adjourned.